Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father, having loved his own who are in the world. He loved them to the end. Now the Greek word that he uses there is teleos. And teleos, actually this verse is problematic for us who read Greek, and here's why. John's a pretty basic guy. He's so basic in his Greek that if you're a Greek student at a Bible college, you can, in your first year, it's possible for you to pick up the Greek New Testament and read John's writings. You can't even scratch Paul's because Paul, he's a big wordsmith. He uses a vocabulary like you wouldn't believe. But if you're a student of Greek, you can struggle through Paul with a lot of help. But John is a breeze. And this verse blows all that out of the water. Here's how it goes. He's saying, Jesus loved them as much as you can possibly be loved. Now that's important. In the first 12 chapters of John, John only uses that word agape 6 times. In these chapters, which are the upper room, and Jesus' high priestly prayer in John 17, from John 13 to John 17, he uses that same word 31 times. That is the thing, and it's all in that upper room, and it's all as we are watching this happen, and everything that happens is about love someone else. And remember some of those passages? This is how I know you love me, if you do all that I have commanded. A new command I give you, love one another. So all of this has taken place. This is the undercurrent. The theme is love. And let's pick up at verse 2 again and watch what happens. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. What would it be like to sit in a room, your final meal with your best friends, and they're not acting well? They haven't been behaving very well. And unfortunately, you happen to be God, and you know how everything is going to take place. So imagine, if you will, that you're sitting in a room, and you know that the guy who's at the table with you has already gone to the chief priest, he's already gone to the Sanhedrin, and he's settled a price to betray you. You already know that in a few hours, you're going to be hanging on a cross, and you're going to be dying in agony. You already know that your best friend is going to be cowering at the bottom of the cross with the women. You already know that your other best friend is going to deny you 3 times. And you're in the room with them, and you know every one of their fails that's about to take place. What would you be like? If this were you, how would you feel? So here's Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You get this? You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." Now hold on to that. That's important for the rest of this lesson. Because he's going to ask them a question, and it's based on what's happening. But he knows they don't know. So here's Simon Peter. And by the way, Simon Peter in the next few verses is going to be Simon Peter, who is, he's not the brightest bulb in the pack. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. If you want somebody to excel well in behavior, he's not the guy you go to. That's Simon Peter. So watch what happens. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into the basin, began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And in that culture, what would happen at a dinner? You would have servants who, while the guests are reclined at these couches, and you're leaning on one arm, and the food is before you, and you're taking your right arm and you're dipping into the same bowl, here's a servant, maybe even a slave, who's down at your feet, and they're pouring water on your feet. Jesus gets up, the Lord, the Master, and the guy they think is going to be the next king of Israel. He gets up, wraps a towel around them, and then he says, "Let me wash your feet." Wow. Are you getting the tension in the room? Are you understanding the emotions of what's going on right now? And here's the problem. The disciples don't know what's going on, really. But Jesus does. So, Jesus replied, "You do not realize what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Okay, Peter, let's be stupid. Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." And now, how many of you have actually been part of a foot washing ceremony? We used to do them quite often at O'Galley. It's humbling. I will wash 1,000 feet. Do you know my biggest challenge? Is having my own feet washed. So I understand Peter's pain here. And I'm calling them stupid, but I tell you what, I'd probably be doing the exact same. I'd say the same words as Peter. "Lord, no, you're not going to wash my feet. No. First of all, I don't want you to see my gnarly toes." Right? "No, Lord." Oh, but he's Peter. He doesn't stop there. "Unless I wash you, you have no part in me. You have to do this." Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, "Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." If you're going to do it, Jesus, jump in. Go ahead and do it. Give me the whole 9 yards, Jesus. I'm with you. Jesus answered, "Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." We get a sign. And we have it in just the next few verses after this. He knows what Judas is up to. He knows Judas has already set the betrayal plan in place. He knows. There's somebody in this room that's a real stinker. Verse 12. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked. And that is the big question today. Now, I'm already going to give you a little bit of an answer. Not one of the disciples in that room knew what was up. Not one. Every one of them was going to be transformed by what happened. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that for the final week of Jesus, half of the Gospels are devoted just to the final week. They couldn't help but talk about it. That's all. For the rest of their lives, these men and the women that were around them, but these men in particular, these apostles, these disciples, they could not help but talk about the last week. And they spent half of what they wrote down just talking about from Sunday to Friday. Well, actually from Sunday to Sunday. Because it changed them. Up until this moment, man, were they diverse. Yeah, you had James and John, the sons of Zebedee, but also the sons of Boanerges, which means sons of thunder. They were hot-headed, they were rebellious, they were knotheads. You had Simon Peter, the gruff, rough fisherman, and he was prone to do, well, if you could do the most stupid thing at the most stupid moment, that was Peter. But you had Simon the Zealot, too, who politically was about as conservative as you can get. He saw nothing but fear and hatred. And Simon the Zealot, if you're a zealot, this is a classification of a zealot. We don't know this specifically about Simon, but for zealots, all they wanted was Rome out of their backyard. Do you realize they stopped talking? You read the rest of the New Testament, they didn't talk politics. These crazy guys, Peter, right after Paul is killed, tells Peter, who himself is going to be killed by the same guy, Peter is saying to the people he writes to, pray for your leaders, which includes the emperor who had just killed Paul and is going to kill Peter. Man, did they change? You better believe they changed. They spent the rest of their days, and for those who are into conspiracy theories, one of the big things that we are challenged with the New Testament is people who say, oh, this is just a big conspiracy theory. They all faked it. Jesus didn't really raise from the dead. But these guys went to their death, proving it. And there were 500 of them. It gets really impossible to try and defend a conspiracy theory when you have 500 people that are involved in it or more. Because to have that many people involved in a conspiracy theory is almost unheard of. But then on top of it, to have people who are willing to go to their death, that just doesn't fit. So here's these people, and they're changed by what happened in that upper room, and it's because of what Jesus did. And here's what I'm left with. As I'm preparing for this lesson, I kept coming back to this same thing. For most of the disciples who are they're kind of in the background. We get a little bit about Andrew. We know hardly anything about Simon the Zealot. There's just so many of them that we basically only have their names. We do have the extra biblical writings that give us the traditions of what happened to them. But it's the Peters that we pay attention to. And if I'm in Jesus' shoes, I'm wondering about washing Peter's feet. There's a part of me that, when you get those problem sort of personalities, the human nature in you, and I'm as the weak gets. Believe me, there's some people you just want to, right? Do you know anybody like that? Maybe you're married to one. There's just those personalities, and here's this knothead who's going to betray me in hours. And he's not going to do it once, he's not going to do it twice, he's going to do it 3 times. And I'm here and I'm still washing his feet. I think that changed them. Here's my best friend who loves me and I love more than anyone else. And all he's wanting is serve me, serve me, serve me. Tell me how I'm going to do well in your new kingdom. Acting about as weak can get. Serve me. But the one that gets me, Judas. How do you do that? I mean, really? How do you get someone who literally sticks a knife in your back? And that love to the end, teleos. He loved them as much as you can love someone. That's what gets you to getting down on your knees and pouring water on a betrayer's feet and then wiping those dirty feet with a towel. It's love that puts you on that cross as you serve them and they don't even know what you're doing for them. So as he's asking them, do you know what I'm doing? They didn't. And they weren't. But they were going to change. and what he was doing changed them. Because, like it or not, the big lessons, the really, really big lessons, are caught rather than taught. It wasn't what Jesus preached, it's what he lived. What have I learned from this? Well, I kind of imagine if Jesus was in this building right now, you know what? He'd probably be wearing a mask. I don't think Jesus has to worry about COVID. And if you think about knowing the real inside story, Jesus knows everything. But I think Jesus would be wearing a mask, not for himself, but for the people he serves. I just kind of think that. I don't know. That's supposition, but it does kind of fit with the guy who goes to a well, and a Samaritan woman who's shunned by her town comes out and he serves her and tells her, yes, I'm the Messiah. It's the same sort of guy that's serving his friends, and he just does phenomenal things for them. Those are lessons that are caught, not taught. So here's what's